Hey everybody, well I've been requested to do the 1 year on Sinnis Apache 125 video by many people. There isn't really a lot to say, which is part of the reason why I haven't really done it yet. Plus, whenever I talk about my bike in a positive way because it is Chinese, I just get a whirlwind of abuse. Not even true anyway with these bikes. Other Chinese bikes maybe have been on with these ones. Anyway, so in the year, what has gone wrong with this bike? I had a relay go. That isn't really responsible for the bike, it's just a relay. They're pretty standard on the pulses and all the other ones use the same ones. Now, the only major thing that I've had to replace on this bike in that time, and it sounds extreme, is the wiring loom. I had to replace the entire wiring loom. Now, the reason why that was is because my dash light stopped working. And we traced it back and back, and eventually I found that somewhere in the middle of the loom there was a loose connection of some sort, and it stopped my lights from working, my dash lights, not the headlights or anything, just the dash lights. And I could have taken the loom apart, I could have tried to find that connection, all of that, but I just went on the internet and went, how much is a new loom? 30 quid. How long is it going to take to replace? Half an hour. That is the much easier option. So that's what I've done. As I say, it fixed the problem. It's a £30 fix. It sounds extreme for such a small thing, but nah, it was fine. I haven't had a problem with it since I've had to do that. The only time this is broken down on me in the entire year is basically I was outside of a shop and I tried to start it and I had complete failure of electrics. Now, as I say, with these bikes, you do need to have a little bit of know-how just to make things easier on yourself, because the things that go wrong on these are not major, huge problems. They're little things that can be fixed in minutes. As I say, the electrics went, so I was like, okay, took the seat off with the toolkit that's already on the bike, looked at the negative terminal on the battery and was like, okay, that negative terminal looks a bit grubby. Took it apart, cleaned off the corrosion stuff that was on it, put it back together, and I will note that that corrosion was probably caused by 4 weeks of rain and this bike being kept outside. And that was, 6 weeks, 2 months ago, and I haven't had a problem with it since, so it literally, I think it was just that rain. Otherwise, there's nothing really to report. It's just going well. Right, I'm going to try and answer some of the most commonly asked questions and address a few issues that I've noticed that people have asked me. Now, when people ask me about this bike, they quite often sort of ask me what's gone wrong, and I've explained what's gone wrong in the past year, and it's not a lot. And considering this bike is half the price of like a WR125, I'm very happy with what I've had to spend out. What was it, like £45 in a year in parts, which were wear and tear type things. And I have always said that, with these bikes, you do get a little few bits and pieces that go wrong with them, but generally they're cheap to fix. They're never to do with the engine, because the engine is good and strong because it's a Suzuki. The frame's nice and good and strong. There's a few bits that frustrate me that would really improve these bikes, and I have told Sinnis myself this, and it's the same with the other companies as well. You make a great bike, you put a great engine in it, great overall package, really good price. To change these bolts here, these ones that rust, to ones that wouldn't rust, like stainless ones, wouldn't put a huge extra cost onto the bike. I strongly recommend that they do that. I mean, like this clip here. Just buy some decent clips and fit those on the bike instead, because if you didn't see these bits of rust, there would be nothing to see on this bike. Now, I will mention, this is the D.E.P downpipe. This exhaust isn't standard. The standard one is this after a year. And I've always said this as well, these standard exhausts do rust like mad. However, you can, if you don't want to go down the lines of getting the D.E.P, because it's quite an expensive system, a stainless steel version basically of that pipe. This isn't actually it, this is for polystyrene, and it is slightly different because it goes with this one. This is basically a very close copy of the original exhaust. Now, as I say, this is actually for polystyrene. These aren't hugely expensive. This one, for instance, as I say, it's not exactly the same one as you'll get, but it's very similar. This has been sat outside for a year. It was used for a couple of years. It's been crashed, and it's still in reasonably good nick. This downpipe was very black and tarnished, and it gets like that after time with stainless steel, because it does colour. It goes very nice colours, and then eventually it goes brown. I spent a couple of hours grinding and polishing and everything on this, and it looks lovely. But unfortunately, it's no use to me now. You probably will find that if you get any problems with these bikes, it will be electrical. But generally, it's not a breakage. It's possibly a loose connection or something like that. And as I say, if you do the work yourself, you'll save yourself a lot of money. So let's get down to it. This bike costs about half the price In fact, slightly less than half the price of a WR125. Very good bike, WR125, no questions about that, the X version, should I say. However, this bike, if you haven't got that much money, is very good, cheap. I've had plenty of fun on it. I mean, you've seen I've gone green laning on the thing. If I didn't trust it, I wouldn't go down in the middle of nowhere where I could get stuck and couldn't push the bike out. It's just been an enjoyable thing to ride. It's done nearly 8,000 kilometres, probably actually over 8,000 kilometres. For basically £2,000, this is one hell of a lot of bike. And as I say, I know I am going to get loads of hate from people for mentioning a good word about a Chinese bike, but I'm afraid the world changes, people, and like people used to think Japanese bikes were crap, some Chinese bikes are good, and I can only talk for the Sinnis and for the Pulse that I've owned and used for years and found to be very good. There may be other ones out there, and in fact I know there are other brands out there that Chinese that aren't so trustworthy. So if you want to go down the lines of like a WR125X, no problem. I don't care. I don't work for Sinnis. I should say this, and I get this a lot. I do not work for Sinnis. I am not paid by Sinnis or anything. I own this bike, and through all the time that I've been on YouTube, I've just had people constantly telling me how my bike is a piece of shit. Now, imagine I come up to you with your bike and just say it's a piece of shit without knowing anything about it. You'd be pissed off about that, wouldn't you? Well, I'm not pissed off about it anymore because I've learned. I don't care. The bike does me good. Is a WR125X worth $2,500 more or £2,000 more? Hell no. So is it worth putting £4,500 into a 125? For some people, maybe. For others, like me, no, it's not. And I'm a long-term 125 user, so you'd expect maybe someone like me to think, yes, it is worth spending that money. I don't believe it is. I don't think that bike's worth, in its, what it is, worth that extra £2,000. Now, obviously, a lot of people send me questions about this bike, and I will reiterate the fact that I do not work for Sinnis. I am not their tech support. I try to help people out as much as I can, but I get so many questions nowadays with these that I can't keep up with it. So, if you have any basic questions to do with it, there are forums out there, there are other owners, there are other vloggers on these bikes. Some have had not such good experiences as I have. I know one guy had a problem with his electrics cutting out, but as it turns out, I think that was probably something quite simple, and he said that he had 8 breakdowns with it. Well, in fact, it was 1 breakdown that he didn't fix. No criticism of that guy, it's just to say that, to say something broke down 8 times with 1 fault. If the first fault was the problem and you didn't fix it, that's not 8 breakdowns, that's 1. You can call Sinnis, they'll tell you all the information. That's all I can really say. I don't think that these sat-down videos telling you about the bike and what has and hasn't gone wrong in the time is the most important thing. I think the most important thing is to realise all of the things that I do on my bike, through all of my other videos. And I'm not a well-off guy, and I can't afford to keep fixing things, so, why would I crash one and then go and buy another one? Because I don't have to spend that much. I don't spend that much money. And of course, these have a 2-year warranty on them, if you keep it up. There's one thing I'll add about the 2-year warranty, is it's dealer-based. Now, I didn't realise this to start with. If you get where you buy your bike from, that is where your warranty is held. So, if you're going to buy one as local as possible. Now, I actually gave up my warranty after about 6 months. I kept it up for 6 months, thought, well, if anything's major is going to go wrong in that time, that's the time it's going to go wrong. And once I realised, I'd gone green laning, I'd beaten the crap out of the thing, nothing's broken, I was like, that's it, I don't need to keep my warranty up. You might, because you might want the reassurance of, the parts and the labour and knowing that that's going to be covered. But when I can do the work myself and the parts are readily available these days, I mean, Christ, in the days that I had a Pulse Adrenaline in the early years, we're talking some of the first ones that were in the country, getting parts could be a problem. Anyway, I've been talking long enough now. You know the score, as I say, it's cheap. If you do get any small problems, all the ones I've had have been very cheap to fix, and I've only been broken down on once, and that was a 10-minute fix. But that's where mechanical knowledge comes in, and I really do advise that with any bike rider or car driver. Learn to do mechanical stuff, because you're not going to then pay someone £50 an hour to do work. And also, if there is work that you're not comfortable doing yourself and you take it to a garage, if they try and bullshit you, you're much more likely to realise that they're bullshitting you. So as I say, check out my videos if you want to see what the bike can do. Check out the playlist with the green laning videos. It's a great bike. I'm very happy with it. If you want one, buy one. If you don't. Anyway, I'll catch you next time. Spicy Formula 1. Wayne's World, very important thing to mention here. Do not forget your